What's up everybody, welcome back to channel CodeX. I'm your host Afzal and today we are gonna learn REST API in detail. So let's go ahead and talk about what are the different topics we'll be covering in today's presentation. So first and foremost, we'll talk about what is API. Before going to what is REST API, first we'll talk what is API. Then we'll talk something in detail about REST protocol. What makes an API a REST API? So REST is basically a protocol which defines certain rules and certain condition which API has to meet to be called a REST API, because this is a very common mistake. Like people do whatever API they have, whatever JSON response they are getting, they treat it as a REST API, but that's not actually the REST API. All right, so that is one thing you have to consider in mind. Then we'll be doing the CRUD operation with REST. So I just want to ask a random question to you guys. Do you really know what is CRUD? Can anybody write in the comment section what CRUD means? I'll just wait for the comment to see like what my audience are up to. They really know the terminologies, or should I go to even basic that level? This is just for information purpose. So write down in the comment section, what do you understand with the word CRUD? Okay, then we're going to talk about the headers and auth part in the REST API. When you call some API, what are the headers, what are the authentication that you can provide? Then once your API gets executed, you get the JSON response, right? So what is basically JSON and how you can interpret, how you can customize that response and how to read that response. Basically we'll not go in detail in the JSON because that will be very long live stream, so I'll keep it limited, just informative, just for the information part. And then finally we will discuss the most important, maybe response status codes. When you're working with APIs, it's not always you're gonna get the response back, or it's not always that you're gonna get a success response. So there are different status code which REST API, or even we can say that HTTP handles. So depending on different condition, you will get a different status code. So those all things we're gonna discuss. So I hope this is exciting. You're gonna stick with me till the last minute of this live stream. Let me know in the comment section what you guys feel. So a lot of people have replied that CRUD means create, read, update and delete. Good thing that a lot of people know it, and it's a very basic terminology. I just want that engagement with you guys. So yes, you know the CRUD operation. So how you can perform the CRUD with help of REST. So there's a different terminology for that inside REST, so that we're gonna discuss in today's live stream as well. What is an API? So just don't read the full form. It's application programming interface. But what is an API? Why do we really need an API? So basically what happens, you need data inside your application, right? At any point of time, you want to show some information, you want to get some information, you want to create some information, right? So for that, your mobile, your client device, okay, has to communicate with the database, has to communicate with the server. And what happens when the communication happens, it has to go through secure channel. So let's visualize it. So say for example, you have a mobile device and you want to show the user profile information. So what you need a database where your user information is stored. All right, makes sense. And then you want to request that server, you want to request that database for your user information, correct? And for requesting that, not everybody can request, right? It will be vulnerable, it will be a security threat if everybody can read your data. So for that you need a key, like we do in, if you have worked in college, like on RDBMS projects or normal database system, how it works, you need a connection string and a username password to connect to database. So basically inside your client, inside your mobile or website, whatever you are developing, you need those information to connect to the database. Now, what is the problem here? You have the connection string, you have the database, just connect it, get the data. The problem comes because this mobile is a client device. So if you're storing your information in the client device, it's a security threat, like anybody can hack it, anybody can read it. So this is the point where API comes in picture. So what you want to do, you want to add one more layer and you want to move that secure key or the connection key or whatever you can imagine, that secure information of the database inside this API layer. So what will happen now, you will be calling to this API and the API will have the secure connection string or whatever it takes to that communicate to the database, and then it will make an internal call to the database and you will be getting the data in the return. This is what an API means. Okay, you have the client, you have the data, you want to get the data or you want to pass the data. You need an API layer so that it's secure and it does only the job which you really need to do. Because what will happen if you have access to entire database, you can perform any operation, right? You can delete anything, you can query anything. So that's not really good practice when you're working for organization, or even if you are creating your own application. So that is something you have to take care, right? So that's why API layer got introduced. All right, so I hope this point is clear. This is what an API looks like. Okay, you have some server and you have an API created just to get your profile. Now, as I said, that database has complete information like your user information, profile, analytics, who logged in, what did. You don't want to expose all data to the client. So that's why API will make sure that only particular functionality, only particular part of the data is exposed, and that we can achieve with the naming like this get profile. So whenever you call get profile, you're gonna get only profile data, and that is what is limited by API interface, right? Now the question is it really a REST API? Because so far now we are talking about API. So now we have to question, is it really a REST API, and what makes an API REST API? Okay, so with that question we'll move to our next slide. And basically for any API to be called as REST API, it should follow 6 of these rules. We want the separation of concern. Our client data, our client modules, that should not be dependent on the server. So REST ensures that whatever data you're returning, whatever information you're returning, it should not impact the mobile application. It should not impact the client. If you have if you have any changes in the client, that should not impact the REST, the server side, right? Now the second point, which is even like I think it's more important, statelessness. Okay, and now what it really means that your API should not depend on any other information. Say for example, whenever you are calling API, you should pass related information like IDs or like what particular data you want, and server should be able to decide based on that input data. It should not be holding any state. So that's what stateless means. And the cache, of course, you know what is the cache. There should be allowance for storing the data locally. So because what happens, your state is not maintained in the server side. So each time you want some information, you have to call to server, right? So like if you're going back from one page to other page, you should not make call continuously. So for that, there's a caching mechanism. So that is also should be controlled by the server. So each API can define whether it can be cached or not, or for how long it can be cached. So for example, if you are having access token, so for access token, there's an expiry time. Like that, API can define whether it should be cached or not. And that information you can store locally in the database or in any form. So I hope these points are clear. I know this is a little theoretical, but just cope up with me. I'm going to show you one example real quick. All right, so now let's move to the fourth point, uniform interface. Now, because as we said, one comment also, I'm going to answer that comment as well now. Someone has asked, can we write API inside PHP? Is it good or not? So that is the beauty of API. In whichever language you write, your client should not be aware of that. So today you're writing something in PHP. Tomorrow, because maybe for some reason PHP is out of the scope, like PHP went down, and you want to create your different architecture in different platforms. Say for example, you want to try Node.js. Okay, so your API, like we saw before, the get profile, or you can say profile, should remain as it is, the server address and the profile, and irrespective of your programming language, irrespective of the server side programming language, the client should get the data as it is. That is what REST API ensures. So that is what the fourth point, uniform interface, irrespective of your backend, whether you're using Firebase, whether you're using MySQL or MongoDB or any kind of database you're using, any kind of technology you're using. Say for example, you're using PHP, you're using .NET services, any service, irrespective of that, your data should be same, exactly same on the client side. So today you are like for some reason you're changing, you're scaling up, it should not impact the client side. That is what uniform interface means. your API should support multiple server architecture. What it means that it may happen that your load on that API is getting increased. So you should have a mechanism of having extra nodes, right? So you can add one more node to your structure, you can add one more cluster to your API servers, and the API is going to serve the same data without fail. So that is what layer system means. So whenever you're deploying API, you should make sure that it is capable of having the multi-node cluster, right? So that is the 5th point. And the 6th point, which is optional, code on demand. So this is like proposed way, it's not yet compulsory. What it means that your API should return a chunk of code, or we can call applet, on the user request, so that user can run that code on their side. So my screen is visible. Perfect. This is the website where you can try yourself how the API works, how it is how the REST API is being implemented. Okay. Down here you will find all the APIs. So now we are into example section where I'm going to show you how that really works on the Postman. So REST API should look like this. You have the server name, of course, the IP address or whatever, and it should not be get post. It should not be submit data. It should not have that action word. It should just represent a collection. It should just represent a table instead. Okay. So for post or for profile, for users, it should just say /users. Okay, because a lot of time I have seen people are developing APIs and they call get user, get users, get profile. That is what a normal API looks like. That is what a web API looks like. If you're implementing REST, you have to make sure your API is your table. Basically it represents your table. Okay, so here you can see we have /post, which is a get API. Over here we can see, and when you call this API, you're gonna get all the posts. Okay, let me show you real quick. So basically what I'm gonna do is copy this URL from here, paste it inside here, and click send. So now this is going to make a request to the server and fetch all the posts on this server, all the posts which belongs to this particular request. Okay, so now you can see that user ID 1 has generated this post, user ID 1 has so many posts. Then let me see. Yeah, for user ID 2 also we have some posts. For user ID 3 there will be some posts. So it has given all the posts. Now one important point of REST API, your API should be queryable. Like the client can query your data. Okay, so it should not happen that I'm fetching all the posts, which is 100 of record. Okay, then I'm filtering out how many posts for this user. Your API should be implemented in such a way that it supports querying. So here user ID 2. So in the post I'm passing the parameters. Say for example user 1 has logged in, user 2 has logged in, or user 2 is viewing the comment section or post section, whatever. So I just want to pass this parameter to the server. So user ID will be 2. Let's try this out. See, now I can fetch all the posts which user ID 2 has generated, irrespective, like other data will not come. So this will reduce the time the API takes to give you the data, and it will increase your performance. You don't have to fetch the 100 records and then filter from your side. What you can do is fetch only the records which is generated by user ID 2. So the important point, your API should be queryable if you're creating REST API. Okay, this is very important point. Now we have seen how get request works. Okay, that was one of the slide. So we have started with the reading record. All right, now second thing which we want to do is post something. What you can do in the same API, in the same naming convention, it should support posting also, if you have that support, of course. So post is going to fetch all the records. If you switch the type of the method of the API, which is post here, then you have to define a body, which you can see right over here. I have created already. So in the body, you can define all the parameter which your API is requiring. Now, this is something which your API developer will give you, so you don't have to worry about that. Here, the user ID parameter, title and body, everything I have defined myself, and I'm just going to click send. Okay. In response, your server will say with the 201 request, okay, 201 status, that your post has been created. Okay, we'll talk in detail about different states also at the end of the live stream, so make sure you watch it completely. Let me check few comments as well. Now put and delete, it's gonna work exactly same. You just have to change the method. And one more important thing, your API should implement all the basic 4 methods, the CRUD operation, if it is something which is queryable data, okay? So that with the help of REST API, client can communicate with your API, client can pass the proper access token, client can pass, if like, it's just like consider a Facebook post, okay? You want to create, you want to read, you want to delete, you want to modify. So you should get all the operation with just single API. You should not have delete post API, you should not have edit post API, okay? You got the point, right? So with just single post API, you can change different operation and you should be able to perform all the CRUD operation. Then only you can say that your API is REST API. Otherwise, if you're creating get post, submit post, delete post, edit posts, then it's not an REST API. You just cleared a big doubt I had. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ankur Saini, for asking this question, because when you ask question, it clears for a lot of people, because not everyone asks questions. So whenever someone asks question, if I answer that, it clears a problem for a lot of people. So make sure you keep on asking question, everybody. That should be a practice. Yeah, now I can share my screen. And before we move, let's hear a big round of applause for the people who are watching. You deserve it. Thank you so much for being in the live stream. And we're gonna move to our next topic, which is headers in API. So far we have talked about what is the REST protocol, how you can say that one particular API is REST, what are the different 4 basic operations which your REST API should support, and then we're gonna talk about headers in API. So this applies to all the APIs, okay? This is basically a meta information. When you're calling API, you're passing some more information so that server can process it, okay? And one of the like basic header we pass is authorization header, okay? That we're gonna see inside Postman. Then we pass content type, what is the information you're passing to the server, that you can define over here. And the accept header, which you can define like what information you are accepting, what information you're gonna accept in from the server. So this is also there in place, like your API can return multiple responses, multiple response formats. Okay. Yep, application JSON, send, you're gonna get the JSON request. And if your API supports, you can say you want XML response. Let's see whether it works. No, because this server doesn't have implemented that. So basically what it means that you can provide different header inputs to the server. So you can provide a lot of information here. It works on the key value concept. So with what client version you're calling the API, what is your platform, what is your maybe application version. So all those information, or maybe in which language your application being used. So all those information you can pass in the form of key value to your server for the purpose of keeping track or logging or all those purpose. Okay. Ankur Saini has super chatted for 40 rupees. Thank you so much, Ankur Saini. I just saw it. I really appreciate it. Guys, you can support channel CodeX by multiple means. You can take a membership of the channel. You can go and buy coffee on Buy Me Coffee, or you can do super chat as well, just like Ankur Saini did. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. How I missed it, man. I'm not having a notification panel somewhere. So now we discussed about the API, how it should look like. It should not have get, it should not have delete, like those keywords should not be there in the API. Your API should support all the 4 basic operations. What are the headers you can pass? All the information which you want to log, or like based on that you want to take some decision inside the API. All the headers you can pass. And once you do all these 3 things, you're gonna get the response back from the server, okay? And that response can be in XML or JSON, but JSON is preferred for the rest because it is lightweight, it works, it's just a key value pair, so it works very flawlessly. And this is what JSON response looks like. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah. So this lady is reading the JSON response, okay? Just kidding. JSON itself, it is a language basically. JSON has annotation language which you can represent integer, string, date time, and boolean. All those primitive data types you can represent with the help of JSON, and that you can transfer without, like, it's a cross-platform implementation. So whenever you write this way, it's going to work on all the platform, Android, iOS, Windows, Linux, whatever platform you can see. Whenever you have double quotes at the right hand side, it means string. When you have no quotes, it means integer or double. If it's a point value, it's a double. If it's direct integer value, it's integer. If you have true or false, it's a boolean. If you have datetime object, it's a datetime. On the left hand side, it's a key, which is always gonna be a double quote. So it's a key value pair. JSON basically is a key value pair. So you have the key, you have the value, you have the key, you have the value, and anytime you want to read it, you can just say, grab this object and say, I want a title. It will return you the CodeX live stream. Basically, this is what JSON looks like. Now, this is very simple JSON. You can have a nested JSON as well. So for example, one user has multiple cars, or one cart item has multiple products, so that your JSON can be a nested JSON, which have the children, which can have another children. It can be nested up to n level, so there's no limitation on that. But the simplified JSON, simplified structure is recommended so that your application can parse it easily. Okay, this is what the JSON response. And if you want a video on JSON response, like JSON itself, I can create that also. It's very, it's very powerful how it works, and how it, in the simple string, how it represents all the data types, and how you can read it, how you can create array, how you can create single object. There's a lot of thing to understand about JSON as well. But as I said, we will keep it limited just to understand the REST API. So this is what the JSON response you'll be getting. And the final thing which we have, when we are making HTTP call, we are transferring some data, we are transferring some information to the server, we are getting back some information. There are a lot of chances of error happening, right? You may pass some wrong data to the server, you may query some wrong data, server may have some failure finding the data, there's a network timeout can happen, anything can happen, right? So for that, whenever you make an HTTP call to the server, there are these many status basically which you will be getting in return. So if you make any mistake while calling to the server, they're going to be client error, the 400, the 4xx which you can see. So you will be getting 400 bad requests if the API which you are calling doesn't really exist. So for example, on server, I'm calling my name, okay, that day API doesn't really exist. So you're going to get 404 not found, which you can see on the lot of website also. If you head to the wrong API, or if you head to the wrong place in the URL, you're gonna get the 404. So that is what is client error. And like that, there's a lot of other requests, 403 for forbidden, 401 for unauthorized. Like that, there is so many response codes for 400 session if you make a mistake. Okay, then there's something on the server side. So you made a right request, okay, but on the server side there's some issue processing that request. Maybe the resource is not available, maybe the RAM is full, maybe something is happening. So server is gonna give you the 500 error codes, server error, right, which you can see right over here. Then if everything works fine for you, like you requested something, server is going to return you back something, everything worked fine, then you're gonna get the 200 status code, the 2xx which you can see. So if you are making a get request, you're gonna get 200. If you're making a post request, you're gonna get 201 created. As I said, each topic is very large, in-depth topic itself. So just we're gonna cover in a little bit nutshell. We're gonna touch base all the points. So I hope this is clear. When you're making API call, you written everything fine, your API is fine, your API is supporting all the 4 CRUD operations, okay, everything is working fine. But runtime, there are chances of happening a lot of issues. So you're gonna get all these different status code, and based on that you can take decision inside your mobile application. So if you get 500 error code, you can show something like server has some issue. If you are getting 400 bad request, means you need to change your code, because it should never happen that you are getting a 400 bad request. You are making a mistake, so you should talk to your API guy and make sure that it works fine. Jogan is asking which technology is used in CodeX dev block. That is done with the help of WordPress. I have taken help of one of my friend. Can I see this video later? Of course, Andrea, you can see this video later. I'm gonna edit all the unwanted parts and I'm gonna keep this video on my live stream channel. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys for joining the live stream. I hope it was helpful. Make sure to write comment, make sure to like the video, share with others so that all others can also get benefited out of this. And I will see you guys in the next one.